He's out of town.
Is that right? Okay.
He said he's gonna come? Good. All right. Where are we?
No, he said he's not coming.
Oh, he's not coming.
No, he said he's out of town.
Duke's not gonna
Okay.
come?
No.
Does he gotten tired of us?
Okay, it is 5:03 on Tuesday, August 27th. I'm going to call this meeting of the CRCRC to order, and we'll start with roll call.
Alex Robinette.
Jay Van Bavel.
Brian Ryder?
Dave Bench.
Tom Farrell.
Okay, and we'll move on to any public comments. Anybody signed up to comment? All right, we'll just move right past that. Into the consent agenda, we have our two,
I'm
Two
terribly
meeting
offended
minutes?
because
you are?
on one of our,
Yeah,
let me see if I can find it, one of our,
Minutes.
minutes, I'll get there, Tom. My name was Brian Commerwright.
no kidding. I
Yeah.
missed that.
So,
What minutes is
let me,
Which,
let's see
yeah, you
where
know
else.
which one?
It's on the 13th. I always thought that,
There we are.
I thought that was you.
But Brian attended and so did Ryder, apparently, on Tuesday, August the 13th. Just take out a comma there in my name.
I make a
You know
motion.
what, the purpose of me raising this is solely for the purpose to let you know I actually did read the damn things.
Well, I read it and I didn't catch that.
I didn't
But I
catch it
didn't
either.
look at your name.
I only look
catch
for
it.
my name.
Yeah, either. It said, would you prefer to be hyphenated?
So I make a,
I
Could you-
prefer to
could-
be at a bar
can you
drinking
fix that,
beer.
Michaela?
Yes.
You can fix it, okay, okay, so, do we
All right.
have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the August 13th minutes with the deduction of the comma between Brian and Ryder.
All right.
I will second that.
All right, okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0 carries.
On August the 20th, I will make a motion to accept them as written.
And I second that.
All right, we have motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I wasn't here, so I can abstain
It,
or just
it looks
say
pretty,
aye.
looks pretty good, actually, they're great, great minutes. Whoever did them did a great job.
Thank you. Okay.
it? I don't think it was me, I think it was Ashley, but,
That's fine, well, then she did a great job.
all right.
Okay, all right, moving on to regular agenda, item number 4, discussion and possible action on emails and letters to the CRCRC from August 13th to August 26th, 2024. Do we have any letters?
Yes, we have one, August
We do?
27th.
We have a new
No,
letter?
that was on the 27th, not
From-
the
Okay.
26th.
From my understanding, there wasn't anything attached in the packet,
Yeah,
and so I don't believe anything was received during that time frame.
I don't
Okay.
recall anything.
What do you have, Tom?
Jerry wrote a letter on the 27th.
Oh,
It exceeded the
Okay.
window that we're looking at.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Sorry to catch you, Jerry, we'll catch you next time, all right? So, okay. And I guess that's been, all right. So we have nothing to do with that. We'll move on to regular agenda number 5. Item 5 is discussion and recent city council meeting and upcoming joint city council, planning and zoning and CRCRC meeting. Okay, at the last city council meeting, I presented the most recent iteration of our recommendations for building heights, and they were well received. And there was discussion about them being taken to the next P and Z meeting, but the mayor, Tony Stein, and I all agreed that it would be fortuitous to all of Rowingwood for those, the 3 groups, CRCRC, P and Z, and City Council, to meet at the same time on September 4th, taking up the date that was originally scheduled to be our public hearing, and just hearing or discussing what it is that we're doing with both building heights and the trees ordinance. And the idea is that we're just trying to cover all bases, get some good discussion, make sure that all three groups are on the same page on all of this stuff. No decisions will be made. It's only a hearing and discussion. The public, of course, is invited. It's a regular P&Z meeting. But no, the intention is not to take it forward to any decision. A decision will be made at that meeting as to whether or not P&Z may meet on a separate occasion, maybe a week henceforth, to consider what their recommendation would be with regard to heights and trees. Or it may wait until the next P&Z meeting regularly scheduled.
Are we gonna have the draft language for the September 4th meeting on the
To
tree
that
ordinance?
point, they were asking our legal counsel to get the draft language in order for this meeting. So the answer is yeah, Jay.
Okay.
They're supposed to have all of that together. The heights piece is pretty easy because it's fairly code-and-ease already. I believe that Charlie and company will be able to get what it is they need. They've been asked pretty strongly to get it together. I think they
And
will.
as far in advance as possible?
I think that, you
if
know,
we're gonna
this
discuss
meeting is
specifics.
what, about a week from tomorrow?
But in Congress, what they do is they say, if you really wanna know what's in it, you have to pass it first. Aren't we using the pattern of our national government?
Let's hope not.
I think not.
So
No, not
I'm
either.
expecting it tomorrow.
Excuse my cynicism.
Okay.
I'm
It's
expecting this
election
stuff to be,
season.
there tomorrow. I think that they had made a lot of progress on the tree stuff already. They got all their questions answered. And, you know, and like I said, the building heights it's half code ease already, so it's not, I don't think they're having any trouble putting that together. We're gonna talk about, a little bit about that later on, about where we are with the height stuff. There might be an adjustment needs to be made, but nonetheless, I think this is a great idea. I think there will be some public attendance, but I think it'll be reasonably anticlimactic.
I can't be here on the 4th, so doesn't matter.
But to that point, yes, you know, we are being asked to attend.
I'll be there.
Okay, good. And the idea being that we can, here's the source, the horse's mouth, as it were, you know.
Which end?
And we can.
What time is it?
I'm speaking for most of us here. I'm not talking about myself.
Okay.
What time is the meeting?
It's a regular P&Z meeting, so they start at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a 5 to 7 that I have to be in. So,
Okay. Well, if you
sorry.
can make it in the end, it'd be great. Or if you
Y'all
can
be
Zoom- or
done
if you
by
can-
7.
Or if you can zoom in,
No.
you know, it'd be great. Again, no decisions will be made, but it'll give us an opportunity to kind of show our wares and get some real discussion around. I think, to a large extent, I think we brought closure to this. There wasn't anybody at the council meeting to talk, from the public, to talk about the recommendation. So, I'm feeling pretty good that I think we might have gotten past a bit of this, I hope. Now, to that end, I know that Alex is working on a document right now that, if I thought I heard it right, you were thinking about presenting it at this meeting?
It was suggested by some P&Z members that that Duke and I maybe put together a quick history of the process, because
Right.
I think a lot of P&Z members, you know, feel like they don't have really the timeline of events and considerations that we made, and it might be nice to just have it kind of quickly and digestibly in one place, which was kind of a good exercise and just sort of kind of hitting the high points of our process. So I thought that that would be a good time to present that, if other members agree.
David tasked me a couple of weeks ago to do a rough draft of a record, so to speak, of our consideration of impervious cover, FARs and drainage issues, which we've talked about periodically. And I think you and I need to coordinate on this, because I wasn't here for the first part of what you're gonna write. And I've written something that my work you know, since,
Mhm.
which includes a couple of weeks that you were not here.
Mhm.
So I think I'm gonna give you my stuff, and you can edit and chop and change and whatnot,
Okay.
and we can produce. I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of your concepts has been that we would present the city with a, call it a binder for lack of anything better, I mean, some form of report. Here's what we're tasked to do, and here's what we've come back with.
Okay. I don't know that I interpreted the request so much as that. It was more, I think there were some questions about, did we do enough to consider our current code? And could we have made amendments to our current code? What did that look like? And then where did we go from there? So it wasn't necessarily a list of recommendations. I think that's a separate document. This was maybe more just a, how did we get here?
Okay.
Document.
Brian and I
They
had
ought
some
to be a little
discuss-
consistent
Yeah.
though, and so I
Yeah.
should give you my word.
For sure.
Brian,
yeah.
Brian had some, and I had some discussion earlier today, and, and I had read the document to the extent that, it was completed whenever you handed it to me. And, there's a nice piece in there about the FAR,
Mhm.
and about what work had gone into making a decision as to whether or not it was fit for purpose for us and all that. And I said, Alex has written this nice thing, and you got a graphic in there that shows, Jeff's analysis.
That was mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, excuse me, I apologize. Anyway, there was that graphic in there that has the analysis. I said, well, that would fit in with the FAR discussion that Brian has, and just to harmonize things together so that they all line up, I think it would be useful. So I suggested that you two
I
might want to
think
get
there's
together
a
and
lot
share
of
that.
value in doing
It does look good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now, also, having read that document, what I would ask is, rather than use a document like that for backup material for them to read in advance, but I would like to see more of a bulleted, kind of a list of
Okay.
high points. We were here, we did this, and then verbalize the whole thing. Otherwise, it just won't get,
Too
it
long
won't
and
get,
read. Yeah.
yeah, it won't get the proper
What
amount of attention.
I did was at
okay?
a very high level, meaning not in great detail, though, tie it back to our questionnaire and the responses we got and the analysis that you did of what the comments really meant in relation to the yes and no kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think that, I did that, Alex, because I wanted somebody, if they really ever wanted to really get in the files and see whether we had done our homework,
Mhm.
to create a document that says, we did.
Mhm.
Because I think we have. You
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Certainly you
Yeah.
have, more
Yeah,
than all
no
of us,
question.
but you have. And we need to put that into whatever the monument is of our finished product.
Yeah, I can see your document going into the finished product,
Mhm.
maybe even as a standalone thing,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's coming along nicely, I think.
Quick question, are you guys talking about the report that you guys want to put together? Is that right? I just wanted to make sure y'all are still on the related
Okay,
agenda
I'm sorry,
items.
Still on
no, we're really still talking about
Okay.
the meeting. We're
Okay.
talking about the council meeting that's coming
And
up.
what we might bring.
And what
to
we
that
might bring, what
meeting.
kind of
Perfect,
things.
I just wanted to make sure.
So that-
Continue.
Now,
Thank you.
now, and I think in like manner, if there's maybe a succinct list of things that could be addressed in the trees ordinance, that might be worthwhile doing too.
Kind of high
As
points.
opposed to, point by point, every single thing, just, this is the high points, this is, the big thing being that we recognize heritage trees and that they need to be handled a
You
certain
mean
way.
a
So-
timeline?
I'm sorry?
A timeline of when we decided what, when?
Oh, I don't know if we need to be that.
I don't know if we
detailed.
need that, I just think that just the basic decisions as to what we got to.
What changed. And
Now,
what
if you
was
wanna
added,
put
what was
time in
added.
there, that's fine, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's
But-
necessary.
What I tried, Jay, was just to tie it back to the questionnaire
Yeah.
and the fact that we did
Yeah.
responded to the questionnaire.
If,
But tying it to a timeline,
yeah,
I just, this is back to the 7th grade when the teacher said, show your work.
right, yeah.
You got the right answer, now show your work. And that's what I think, from my lawyer standpoint, we need to do to make a report.
If I could see a copy of your
Pass this
preliminary, what you've done, so I can kind of see
Absolutely.
what it is
Yeah.
that we're.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
supposed to do.
if you're referring to the times that I put on
Digitally
the
or-
This was
recommendations,
Word document, and I haven't
that
sent
was
it out
really,
to everybody.
Okay.
that was for the benefit of people that are looking at and checking every
And then
dotted I and crossed T to make sure.
we'll.
I'm not
if you
gonna
want
buy
to Pick a bird.
No,
Okay.
no.
Use
But
it,
this is,
you can.
this is,
He's
And I
always
will
talking.
send you
this is really
copy
interesting.
as well.
Right.
I'm just gonna pass that around. I just want you to see it. You might have gotten this in the mail
Yeah, I
yourself.
got that in the
past.
mail.
Did you? Yeah.
Am I allowed to share this document with multiple people?
With who? I'm sorry?
Multiple people?
Send it, go ahead and send it to either Ashley or Michaela, and they will distribute it.
Okay. It's not ready for prime time.
Well,
I mean,
they
I just,
will try.
so I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I
What,
don't-
the document that,
It's a working
yeah,
document,
okay.
so
Well, as is mine.
it's not like,
If you want comments, the best way to do it is send it in.
Yeah, send it
And
to
let them
Ashley,
send it
ask-
to everybody, cause then
Okay.
you're perfectly safe to do that.
okay,
Yeah, cause you just don't have to walk for them.
right, that's what I was,
Yes, ma'am.
It looks, is it much further than what you had yesterday?
it hasn't been changed at all.
Okay, yeah, it's nice looking. So, what else was there about that? I think that's really all there is. I think that this is, there was some discussion about whether we would actually get the public hearing in October or even November. If I have anything to do with it, I think we're gonna try to get it done in October on both of these items. So, if we can make that happen, I would
The
prefer
required
it.
public hearing before making it, before the city council can adopt.
That would be the formal public hearing.
They
Yes.
couldn't,
What?
if you
Should
look
we-
at the timing, they couldn't get this back from the attorneys in a final document, go to P and Z and go to council by November. My guess is it'd be December before that final document is voted on for the final time by the city council.
Well, I would like to at least see this go to the October P and Z meeting.
It very well could.
Yeah, right.
If you can get all that, if the attorney will cooperate and draft and
Or if they
Well-
break it into pieces, you know, as Dave was saying, the height issues are really not all that complicated to write.
no.
The,
The trees, maybe a little bit more, the trees and setbacks and requirements and the setbacks.
I think,
don't
I
know.
hope
Maybe
it
fairly
is done in
simple, too.
November.
I haven't looked at it.
It's pretty well done.
But,
I
you
think
know,
he-
give yourself, just my
Oh, yeah.
experience is,
Sent comments back to the.
low expectations, Tom. Low
Well,
expectations.
But this is that the council's gonna have to make this decision, but it could be broken into a couple of bite-sized pieces instead of waiting and trying to do the whole thing at once, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, it is actually, I think it's gonna be taken up, at least as two different items, right? It's gonna be trees and it's gonna be the heights.
My concern is what can we do to publicize, to let people know about this September 4 hearing, or, you know, meeting?
well, we have time to, is the water bills gone out?
The water bills have not gone
Oh, have not?
We have two ways
They're
that
not gonna-
basically get the deal done the quickest way.
If there's a-
One, we have three ways, if we wanna walk and put up notices, but I wouldn't suggest that. Two ways is, one, we can send a notice on the water bill. Two, we have a public notification system that we can send, that we can dial your number,
Oh, yeah, the
whatever that's called now, they changed it.
Are you talking about Rave, the notification system?
Yes,
Yes, it is called Rave.
whatever, it's but that's and I think both of those systems, but if water bills have gone up in September, which they have probably, then we can't do that, but we can notify everybody about this.
I think
Or
we
most
should,
people.
I think we should, just to beat the drums
I-
and see if there really
couldn't
is a
agree more.
hornet's nest out there that we don't know about. Be better to find it out now.
Then I-
Can we ask staff to do that?
I can consult with Ashley tomorrow, and then we can follow up with you.
This is
That sounds
this is a big enough event in Rolling Wood. I mean, that's supposed to be for emergency, so people don't
Yeah.
get used to being bothered and then not do that, but this is a big enough, deal that I think it should work.
Of course, what's key is that no decisions are planned to be made for this meeting, and that's a big thing. So it's literally just more of an education than anything else, just getting everybody on the same page.
But it's a show and tell, and so that then
Yes.
we can say later, if somebody does show up as an angry hornet at a meeting and say, I never heard anything about this. We
Fair
can
enough.
say,
What is the difference between a joint meeting and a public hearing?
No,
It gets noticed.
well,
Whenever the public hearing comes, then we'll be sending out the postcards and so on that notify everybody that this is.
that's of the
Formality
voting,
of the
that's
notice.
of the zoning change, you know, or the policy change. But for a hearing like this, a public, you can do it both ways on that, Jay. You can say a public hearing allows the public to basically participate directly. If it is a council meeting, they get to talk, there'll be a provision when it starts for public comment, but to not necessarily a comment on each item that's addressed in the agenda. That's a technical, I mean, that's just how that works.
Okay.
But I would suggest that it always be, I mean, generally, who's gonna run the meeting is Gavin, I presume. And he will make that a quasi-public,
Discussion.
meeting, because you're never gonna have one of our citizens stand up and say, I'd like to talk about this item, and not give them an opportunity to do so.
So you have to have a public hearing before any votes are taken?
You do if you're changing the building code or the zoning code.
Okay.
So you're asking what the difference between a public hearing and a joint meeting is?
Yes.
Okay, so a joint meeting is something that council did elect to do and did approve to happen. So the three bodies are gonna come together, each one will call roll, each one will be holding their own separate meeting. Y'all will be conversing together. This meeting is posted for no action. However, I believe there may be some portions on there that council at the very end can then say, okay, we're gonna set the next meeting or the next public hearing for. But in whole, you guys are gonna be able to converse and talk and do all these different things, which is kind of like a workshop, how you keep wanting to say, people will be able to talk, you guys will all be able to speak. A public hearing is a notified meeting of
much
the
more
public.
notifying.
There is a public comment that has to take place. They're given the opportunity to come up and oppose or basically say that they're liking it, those kinds of things, or deny it. Then y'all can make that decision. P&Z will make their decision on their public hearing, which therefore a recommendation goes forward to council. Council then has their public hearing, and then they make the change in the code.
Generally, when
And then the notice, yes, the public hearing has to be notified. Thank you.
you get the
To
notice.
every resident by mail, or
Depending on what, but with the zoning code and the residential, yes, it will be notified
but
to
you're saying
every
then
resident.
that this process has to go to a P and Z public hearing, and then
It will.
before it goes
So-
to a city council public?
So
hearing?
in theory, y'all will be having this joint meeting. If council, if y'all all feel that it's going in a good direction, council may at this meeting take action to set a public hearing. And therefore, that would be when notices will go out, it's published in the newspaper, those things, and then that next meeting that they do set, that's when P&Z will come together and make their recommendation. It'll go to the next meeting of the council,
But
and then it will be
It could be
actually
that they
adopted.
decide to have a joint public hearing.
They could, yes.
Yes, in which case, what happens is mostly the same thing. It'll be P&Z and city council getting together on the same evening, and roll calls being taken separately. And then P&Z will do its deliberation around whatever is being discussed, and make it, and then motion a vote, and then it'll get turned, and then closed down, and then council will take up that recommendation from P&Z and then act on it then, or not.
They still have to have a
I
separate
would-
hearing.
I would,
Okay.
suggest that they be separate meetings, and just because that, when you're doing that, it appears that you're doing you're rushing to do this. I mean, it's not an emergency
Nikki, I have a quick
to
question.
get that.
You said it's noticed in the
It's just,
newspaper?
the normal
Which
course
newspaper?
of business is you
Statesman.
don't do
Statesman.
that together.
That's always been the
But
case?
we have done it in the past.
We have, but
Yeah.
the normal course is you don't do that together.
I think that,
If they wanna, if the
my
council
my
wants to do
sense
it,
is that council more and more wants to do that because it's
they get to
economical
vote
and
on it, they
efficient.
can do it.
It's efficient. So, but,
So-
and, you know, my take on it is, they can do it any way they want. I'm just a P and Z guy and, you know, I show up, so.
Well, P and Z has a legal, P and Z has to vote on it and approve it,
Right,
or disapprove it before the council gets to vote on it.
which has happened.
And remember, if P and Z came back and turned it down, it then takes a supermajority of the council to be able to pass it.
And that doesn't happen at that public hearing.
It sure can.
It can,
It sure can.
That's
Well,
why,
It
there'll be,
can.
the public
Jay,
hearing is
it-
adjourned, we now
It can and has.
call to order a
Exactly
council meeting.
that.
It can be
And-
done
and-
rapidly, and that's what Tom is saying, well, is it wise to do that?
And-
But it's not within our control.
it's not, but I'm just saying, the reason is if you have, generally, the P and Z might have some issues that they want to address within that deal. And it's difficult then for them to take a vote at the same time and then send it to council. It usually is better that you have a little bit of time to fix whatever it is, the issue that came up, and then goes to council. I don't care. It can go to council, council gets to make that determination, and they can do it. They get to take that's their call, not ours.
Thank you for explaining that very
Yes.
complicated.
Alex did have a question on what newspaper the notices are published in. It's published for, I believe, one certain day. But it is Austin American Statesman. It was the
Only
Picayune,
ones we got, man.
but they had closed, so that's our only available publishing.
Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion around this upcoming meeting?
Nope.
All right, then we'll move along. Regular agenda item number 6, which is the discussion and possible action on critical root zone protection.
Let me explain where we're at with that. I think Jerry has given me several suggestions for changes to the tree ordinance. One is to do with critical root zone protection and tree protection requirements taken from the city of Austin. And then there is just something separate was just changing the wording on restoration, adding topsoil. But the main thing is the critical root zone and tree protection requirements that we want to, I think we want to put into the tree ordinance. Where we're at with this, though, is the tree ordinance is being, the final copy of it is being written up by the attorney right now, and I need to write
That's all we got.
this in a format that I can present to the committee to actually approve it. And then it's gotta go to P and Z to include it in the current draft. And so that's where I'm at. I have not accomplished that first task because of other issues that I've had going
Jerry,
on.
Jay, you can do it a little bit differently. Since it's being drafted right now, you can send this as an addendum, unless we wanna vote on it. And then you could send that directly to, P and Z and the
But
county.
I can't send this to the attorney for drafting without the approval of the CRCRC
Exactly,
and
right.
I think the P and Z committee.
Okay.
What I was.
It's new, it's brand new language.
Oh,
When,
okay.
when we were discussing by email last evening, I was wondering if it's possible, if it's simple enough to just try to verbalize a result this evening. And if it's too complicated to do that, then I'm good with it, it's fine, we can wait until next time.
I could read through the suggested language for tree protection requirements, including critical root zone protection as well. That's on here somewhere, isn't it? Do you want to do that, or?
Well,
Run that through the
you're-
copy
as-
machine
as
and
the
let's
chair-
all look at it together.
As the chair of that subcommittee, I'm leaving it to you. You know, whatever you're comfortable with. If you don't wanna do that, it's fine with me. We can table it and let you have a chance to write something.
Yeah, I would ask for some more time to put
That's
this
fine.
together in a format that
All
would make
right.
sense.
We'll table this for next meeting, and that's fine, okay? We'll look forward to that. Moving along to regular agenda item number 7, the discussion and possible action on fence height recommendation, and my compliments to Tom for getting all the, my compliments to Michaela for getting these, what the various fence height ordinances are in the surrounding area. They are varied, aren't they? They're very different.
So I just read it, that's all I'll tell you.
I read
And
them
did
too.
the little summary.
They
page.
are
But
interesting.
no, and I think that was really a good, I hope, the intent was of that was to have Michaela introduce herself to our adjacent sister cities so that they knew not only who she was, but who she could contact to get some contacts of her own on that.
That
I
sounds
hope
like a
it
cop
works.
out to me, Tom.
Listen, it may be, but I will tell you, it's very important that we do that. And, because we interact with these cities all the time, and I would encourage, I know, now, I will say this, I've encouraged our city employees to do that many times in the past, and 2 of our city employees now work at Westlake Hills. Okay, so there's a downside, and I recognize that, but.
Let's not be getting any ideas
But
here.
that is an important thing to do.
Could I ask
So-
that the entire, looks like the entire Westlake Hills code is
Yeah,
attached.
do
But
you,
is it distilled down to what's on the summary page on the front?
I did that for my own benefit when I was
Okay.
reviewing this, Jay, and I just went ahead and sent it in. Because this, if you take this on the height section, well, let's see if I can find Westlake Hills here. All right, if you take it through Westlake Hills, their height that they have on there is only 2 items. They have, and it's item number 9 on their code.
Mm-hmm.
And they only have 2. One is 6 feet, and the other is if you want to electrify the fence, you can do it at 4 feet.
And all this other language, I was amazed, the 3 pages of small print on just fences.
right.
Well,
I don't
Westlake
think we're
Hills
trying to
has
do that.
is noted for having a lot more ordinances than, say, most of Rolling Woods ever had. But I think this summary page kind of puts a lot of the height, and that was what I was looking at, on there. So, I think if you look at this, a base level of almost all these cities is 6 feet. Austin has some topography issues and a safety issue, which I would suggest we not do that. I would rather not address an electrified fence and give people ideas about what they're doing with that. Bee caves, I think, allows that a little bit more. Lakeway, now, the only thing I will tell you is they do allow up to 15 feet.
That's a lateral, the way I read that, Tom, it's a lateral, not a height.
And that is correct. It's not up, it's down.
You can
Yeah.
have 8 feet for a lateral 15 feet at certain,
So-
to basically to
That's correct.
bridge across a setback.
So
Yeah.
you're filling a space like
Yes.
a depression? Is that what they're doing?
No,
No,
I
it's-
think it's from, like,
I agree.
it's between either a house or another fence and the street, so you
Yeah.
can make a completely enclosed yard.
Somebody wanna draw that for us?
Yeah, they're trying to say fences can be up to 15 feet from, a non-primary street side setback.
So,
So not up.
Oh.
yeah, it's
across.
lateral. So
Then-
I have my suggestion about what I would do this, and y'all can look at this or not look at this. I think that I like the idea that there is a 6-foot base fence that's approved administratively here. We do require a, permit to get a
Right.
fence. Our existing ordinance says you can go over 6 feet, but it has to be engineered. And I
And
really.
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, that means that Brian and I could not just go out and build a 8-foot or 9-foot fence that separated it from your house, and you're walking by it and the damn fence falls over on your head.
I think it refers to the foundations, Jerry probably knows better, for each post.
It
Has
does.
to- You have to show
That's how you-
probably what the
And,
footing looks like.
and the post that goes up and how it's connected to the fence, because you don't want the wind to blow it over and create a safety hazard. That was what the intent was. Don't mind keeping that.
And so, when you say engineered, then what's the process, if I may ask? What does
Well,
that mean?
Nikki's the
Okay,
one
it's
that
more than 6
administers
feet,
this
it has to be
thing. Well,
engineered, so what do you
I
need
have
to
an
do?
engineered fence in my backyard.
Okay, all right.
And the fence company had a fence engineer,
There's such a thing?
I don't know. He had an engineer do this. I did not have to get, a permit from the city of Rollingwood for that fence, because it was put on property line, that was in the city of Austin and city of Westlake Hills. My house abuts both those two locales. So, it's not in Rollingwood, but it was engineered.
Okay.
Which
And
I
the
guess
fence
just means
company-
stamped.
When you say, okay, now
Yeah.
engineers, take that back, what's that mean? What does that mean?
Stamped plans,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, say?
stamped plans.
Okay,
By
so
seal.
that means you go to K-Freeze, does it mean?
could, they didn't, but,
Architect and
But it'd be on your dime, you'd have to,
yeah.
okay,
And
and
that's
you
up
would
to
go
8
to, what, a civil or a structural
Still above
engineer?
6.
Probably a
Structural,
fencing company would
okay.
provide
They
in-house
do,
services.
they had the engineer there, and this
Okay.
company that did this, sent it in.
I don't think it's
Got it
as
approved.
intensive a process as you might think.
No, it's
I
no
think
big
it's
deal.
pretty, they pull
Okay.
out their
I
standard.
need a
I just wanna
clarification.
understand it,
Is-
that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
I'm not,
If you-
yeah.
If it's 6 feet, it's administratively approved. If it's over 6 feet and engineered, that is approved. What's the upper limit of an
We don't have
engineered
one
fence?
in Rollingwood.
Well, that's a bad idea.
I agree, and I think that it's time to do this, and I'm not making that as part of my deal. I suggest that we do this as a 6-foot base and allow up to 8 feet with the, engineering on there,
Okay.
up to 8 feet.
Okay.
If it goes over 8 feet for topography reason or whatever reason, I would suggest then that we require that to go to the Board of Adjustment for a special exemption with these following conditions that I would suggest as being part that we do. One is you get it for privacy, continuity, since you want the
Straight
fence to be
across.
straight across,
Fill in the divot, as it were.
or safety.
Where's safety come in? How's that work?
Well, just like in the city of Austin, you can have a higher fence if there's a way for their wording is a child to climb over the fence.
If
What if-
there's something adjacent, another fence or something that,
Enables
their example is some kind of a, something
telephone
on a
pole.
pole.
Yeah,
What about backing up before having to go to Board of Adjustment? What if you got approval from all adjacent neighbors?
and that was one of the things that I started with, but I went, if you're going to the Board of Adjustment, that is going to be a pretty much of a must if you're gonna get that or not.
But we could put that,
So, but I
we're
don't
talking
mind
about
putting,
it,
I don't mind putting that in there.
we're making that a special exception,
You
right?
can put, well, wait a minute, I think, and I thought about this. If you get your neighbor's approval,
Mhm.
then you don't go to the Board of Adjustment.
That
I
was
think
my
that's-
question.
And that was one of the things I did, but
Yeah.
I went,
So it's a board, okay, let's walk that back a little bit. If, it's gotta be engineered, you can, if it's over 8 feet, you can go to the Board of Adjustment for a special exception, I think that's what it would be, for these 3 reasons, you know, safety,
Well, let me-
privacy, and all that, and then,
Or
or you can get your neighbor's approval.
now,
Now, if you don't get your neighbor's approval, you can still go to the Board of Adjustment and overrule your neighbors?
absolutely,
Mhm.
with these provisions, I mean, because we're gonna have to give recommendations as to
Mhm.
what constitutes to be able to do that. Safety,
Yeah.
privacy, continuity.
And
Those are 3 that I have.
The neighbors will still have an opportunity to
Absolutely,
also go before
absolutely.
the board and argue their case
Sure.
if
Right.
there's an
Now-
issue, so.
The question is, and I had, this is my notes, I originally had, okay, you can have 6 feet. If you go 8 feet, you need some neighbor approval, do you, or don't? Regardless of engineering, you gotta engineer it.
Yeah.
The difference
I was-
is,
okay.
the reason I say that is, when you have big fences, they do deprive part of your yard out of additional sunlight. Okay, so you are having an impact on your neighbor. Now, 2 feet, is that a big deal? I don't know. Our fence behind us, that we did jointly with, actually it's 5 neighbors that got together to do this, is probably 9 feet, 10 feet at one area. But it's a substantial fence.
We'll defer to Mr. Ryder, Brian,
But-
Ryder.
Jay's question has not been answered though, and that is there a ceiling on even with that?
Well, let's put it this way, whether we put in the code that 8 feet is a limit or not,
No.
you still have a right to go to the Board of Adjustment to request 15 feet or 20 feet or whatever you want to make. Doesn't mean they're gonna give it to you, but you have a right to ask for
So
that.
what you're saying is you keep, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying you would keep it open and leave it to the Board of Adjustment?
No, I would say 8 feet.
No, hold on. I thought we had 3 categories now. We had the 6-foot fence, which is staff approved. We have the 8-foot fence that must be engineered, and should you do that, you probably clear the hurdle. And then you've got anything over above 8 feet has to go to the board or has to have neighbor approval.
Well, no, I think if it's 8 feet, it should require neighbor approval, but that's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
But if you go to the Board of Adjustment, what I'm saying is, then we put the reasons in here for
Yeah.
the special exception.
Sure.
I don't want people to build 10-foot fences, and I don't think you need to. But if you do for privacy concerns or continuity or safety issues, then the Board of Adjustment, those are the issues that I'd like the Board of Adjustment to look at.
I have 2 comments, sorry.
Oh.
One is, sometimes fences are built on properties and the neighbor will be lower. And so where are we measuring the fence height? Because for the neighbor building the fence that's uphill, it might be 8 feet, but suddenly for the neighbor below, I mean, I think we need to just clarify that language.
They
Yeah.
use, in these things, they use native topography.
Yeah, it's where you build it.
It's mentioned in there,
Okay,
in
but-
these different ordinances here.
But a neighbor below might be
Yeah, but it's not on their property.
staring at a much higher fence.
They might,
There
yeah.
might be.
they might, there may be a
Okay.
drop-off there, and if there is, there's nothing, I mean, you
Okay,
can't take the right to be people build
Okay,
a fence
just
on.
Yeah,
brought it up.
yeah,
The other
yeah.
comment is, you know, when, for instance, we built a 6-foot fence, but then we went to 8 feet with some wires and we grew vines. So it's very, you can see right through it. eventually the vines will take over and do their thing, but is there perhaps some leniency, because I know like in our fence code, we talk about sort of permeability, being able to see through it on the front maybe, and so maybe there's some grace for additional height if it's not solid.
Well, that extra 2 feet in that case, you're still 8 feet total.
Maybe that's your fourth thing that you might be able to get the exception for.
Yeah.
Now, understand, these are just side and rear fences that I'm
Sure.
talking about.
Right.
I didn't touch the front.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I
wonderful.
understand.
But there's already a front fence ordinance in place, and it's perfectly fine.
I just have a question of why is having an engineered fence so much better than just saying 8 feet maximum? I mean, what
Well,
is it
even
about that 2 feet that you need an engineer for?
Well.
Is it just to make it more expensive?
Well, today, no. Today, our ordinance says anything over 6 feet requires it to be engineered.
Why?
For safety
Well, our
reasons, I
ordinance
guess.
doesn't, it's really just the fence. We don't have an ordinance.
The building
Well,
code.
most people aren't gonna
Yeah.
I think, Jay,
skimp, I would
but
think,
I would,
on
I
building
don't know.
an 8-foot
I don't
fence
know.
that might fall down.
My
Like, I
neighbor
don't
and I
think they're
built an
gonna-
8-foot fence, and I don't know whether, and we got a permit from the city, but it was before Nikki was here.
I will tell you, Jay, fences fall down all the time.
Okay.
And when you get above, I mean, we're putting these in rock, quite frankly. And most of the time, if they're not drawn out carefully, if you don't pay attention, they're not putting those fence posts very deep.
Okay, so it's for safety reasons then?
That's where it
And
came
then I
about.
would think any fence over 6 feet, if the Board of Adjustment gives a 15-foot, it's gotta be engineered also.
Absolutely,
Yeah. anything
So does
over
that have to
8
say it
eight
in
or
the-
over needs to,
yeah,
In the code?
yeah. I would
and then
keep,
the engineering, I think,
it's not that
Mr. Major,
complicated.
we've got an engineer present, but isn't it how deep you have to put the post? What is the post made of?
Mhm.
For example, it's a
Sure.
lot more permanent and a lot
Right.
stronger to have a 2-inch, what is it, 2-inch steel
Yeah,
is typical
That's what-
instead of a 4x4 treated 4x4, which is gonna last a few years and then rot at the ground level.
I just want to be able to justify to people that why you have to have that 2 extra feet engineered, and that you would have to have it engineered to go above 8 feet as well.
it was, I will just tell you, there wasn't a cost associated with us having that
Well,
backyard.
that's if you go with a real fence company. If you just hire somebody who
Yeah.
does fencing from neighbor recommendations, which is sort of the way mine was done a few years ago. But it was done with jackhammers down and concreted steel and 4 levels of 2x4, and so it's a very solid fence.
Sure.
But if you're going with one of the formal fence companies, Viking Fence or something like that, they'll have somebody on staff who can stamp the plans. If you go with the guy with the pickup truck who works on Saturdays only, it's gonna be harder to get the plans.
You're saying that the Viking can certify the fence that they're building?
I'm guessing, I have no.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
well,
they're-
look, this was Aaron
They're
Brothers.
warranting those.
It was
yeah.
3 brothers that did this fence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're professionals and they knew what they were doing and they really did I guess, a good, I mean, still there. But that's all I can go with.
It sounds like you have a motion kind of
I'm trying.
put together. Have we all agreed that 6 feet is the base that we?
We haven't yet, but we
Yeah.
might want to.
Yeah.
I will only raise the point in looking back to write what I did about things. It didn't involve fences, but I read comments. And I saw several comments about people saying people are cheating on 6-foot fences because they're building 2 feet of stone above the ground level and then putting a 6-foot fence on top of that.
Right.
Well, that's an 8-foot fence then.
Well,
Because we're saying from ground level.
I'm
Well,
just
Ground level.
reflecting what our neighbors are thinking about fence heights.
I
Yeah.
got you.
Well, when.
And that was
when-
incidental discovery rather than purposeful review.
Let's ask Nikki, if someone is requesting a fence permit, do they have to show what it is exactly that they're building? They do, okay. And so if they don't do that, you have every right to say, well, that's gotta come down, that's not what you got the permit for, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know I've seen one fence come down before. I think it was where Riley met Timberline. There was a fence that was taken down because it was improperly permitted or they didn't do it the right way, something, but it came down. So what you're suggesting really shouldn't happen.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the rules are that you have to commit to a particular fence.
Well, we use the same
Style.
base that we're talking about on the building height, and
Yeah,
that is,
That's right,
and
that's right.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am reflecting that some of our citizens, I saw this on
Yeah.
several, two or three comments, our citizens believe that others are cheating.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Also, if you look through
Okay.
all the comments and add up all the prefer 6-foot height
Yeah,
and all the ones that prefer 8 feet height,
yeah.
which do you think had more?
I'll bet 8 is higher.
They did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 8.
But there wasn't that many of either one, I didn't think.
there weren't that
Did
many
we have a
comments.
specific question on fences?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
Oh, we did?
we
Okay,
did.
I
Yes,
didn't
we
look at
did.
that, but I saw it, and I
Yeah.
saw comments
Yeah.
in looking at FAR and drainage and
And 8
impervious
feet,
cover.
8 feet is the preferred.
I'm ready.
Personally, I don't think 8 feet's all that particularly high, you know, but, and I don't really think that 8 feet is necessarily a dangerous thing because it's just not that high. But if we already have something if we already have something that is required not through ordinances but through the code that is 6 feet, and we're allowing for 8 feet in a different way, all that we're doing is augmenting what's already in place with some
Well,
provisions.
We're also-
And maybe we even allow the third tier, which would be something greater. Which I can see happening in the case where you're trying to maintain continuity and, you know, you have this depression in your property and you're just trying to go down, you know, it's not.
We,
Alex was talking about situations where you have somebody who's building up here and somebody who's lower,
Right.
and when that happens, if you wanna continue the privacy of the lower, person's backyard, that person may need to build a more than a 10-foot fence.
could be.
Maybe.
So they all, remember, you always have it right, whether we put it in here or not as a recommendation, to
That's
go to
right.
Board of Adjustment and ask for a special exemption.
But we need to specify what that is.
And that's what I've got
And,
here,
and,
and I'll make a
and I think you're
motion right
fine,
now.
and I think you're fine with it.
And I agree with your
Or-
point that if we went to an 8-foot base, it'd be hard to explain why that doesn't have to be engineered. So I personally, now that you explained it, I would be in favor of the 6-foot base.
So-
So I'm ready to make a motion.
May we break it into 3 motions? So that we piece this together. These are the 3 kinds of fences that we're gonna talk about.
Well, I'm gonna let the lawyer do that.
All right?
I'm
Well, I
just gonna
think if
give-
you're gonna make a motion and we're gonna tell the lawyers what to do, you still have to describe what
Well,
1, 2, and 3
well-
are.
Well, that's what let me make a motion, then if we wanna break it up, we can. How about that?
That's cool. Go
I
ahead.
make a motion
Go for
that
it.
we have a base height on fences that are from natural grade at 6 feet. We allow 8 feet, anything over 6 feet requires to be engineered. 8 feet will be the, maximum we allow with neighbors' approval, or, you can go to the Board of Adjustment for a special exemption with the following, parts to be considered: privacy, continuity, safety. That's my motion.
I'll second for discussion purposes and
That's what we
then
have to do.
request an amendment immediately.
So we have a motion and a second. So, discussion?
Brian, what do you have for
Yeah,
a
we have
amendment?
we have a motion, you have a second.
And Brian has an
Do you,
amendment.
do we have more discussion around this?
Yes. I would say that what we ought to do is agreed with Tom's first category. 6 feet is the standard from natural grade. Second, though, I would say is 8 feet engineered. That's the only condition for 8. Above 8 requires engineered and Board of Adjustment approval on one of Tom's.
How about neighbor's approval?
Pardon?
Neighbor's approval.
You wanted neighbor's approval on an 8-foot fence.
And
I do not. I do
Okay.
not.
Let's just say if it goes over 8, then you have the neighbor approval.
You have either neighbor approval or you go to the Board of Adjustment for
Either
one of
one.
your standards.
Yeah.
So I would I would request that you allow me to do a friendly modification of your motion such that the standard would be 6 feet from natural grade. 8 feet could be administratively approved if engineered,
Well, anything over 6 feet, because 7 feet would still be engineered.
okay? Anything over 6, up to 8, anything over 6, but 8 feet would be administratively approved if engineered,
Okay,
not with neighborhood approval, just
okay, I got that.
third category, anything over 8 feet has to be engineered and Board of Adjustment approval based on either safety, continuity, or privacy issues.
And all from natural grade,
All measured from natural grade.
and I accept that. Better motion than
I
I.
thought,
You
and I'm
did
trying to
say
think, I
the
thought there was a
neighbors would
fourth,
have to approve the 8-foot
I
fence.
was thinking I had a fourth
No,
category.
I've taken out, no.
But he said that.
I think that if it goes to Board of Adjustment, you're gonna find that that neighbor approval will weigh heavily on whether they get that or
But,
not.
well, that's true, but as far as the writing of the document or writing
That's
of
right.
the rules, neighbor approval is not
I gotta tell
necessary
you,
for
Jay,
8 foot.
the neighbor approval is a double-edged sword. I'll just tell you that from a governance standpoint, because what ends up happening is, if I ask Brian to approve my fence and he doesn't do it, then we have a feud going. And one of the things that small town governments has to do is not have feud goings between their neighbors. So letting the government do this, come in and make this choice, is probably a much better way to do it, as I think.
Actually, Jay, what I would do is simply negotiate how much my percentage is over less than 50% of the cost of the fence. But that's not part of the motion.
Even though Austin does use neighborhood approval as
Well,
in their code.
Well, remember though, that they have a lot of different other ways you could go do that if they had to. Austin, you can always go to the Board of Adjustment without neighborhood approval.
I want another proviso in
Their
there.
lots are much smaller also.
I'm going back to Alex's,
Neighbor.
I'm going back to Alex's point that if you have a transparency on the top side of that fence, that can also be given, that could also be considered by the Board of Adjustment as a reason to give you more than,
Well, that's a
8
matter of
feet.
defining what a fence is, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, you can make a really solid fence with vegetation, just as solid as a wooden one or, you know.
And that's okay, I would think. I mean, I think vegetation is less imposing than like
Well, again, it
a
cuts off the,
concrete wall.
Cuts
Do what?
off
I'm sorry.
light.
We're not allowed, I don't think, to,
Dictate material.
material.
Yeah.
So I think, Alex, if I were on the Board of Adjustment, what you brought up would be a provision I would look at and consider, but I don't think that I would prefer to have that in this recommendation.
Okay.
Because I think most people are not gonna do that. And if it's, I mean, we're not gonna cover everything
Yeah,
on this.
okay.
That's why we have a Board of Adjustment. So,
all right, well,
I-
we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion, is there any additional discussion?
We had an amendment, right?
Well, we have an friendly
to the
amendment that has
discuss-
been
yeah, we
accepted.
I
have
accept
amendment to- and, yeah, okay. So, motion with amendment. Any further discussion? I do have a question.
Do you
He
have-
just says that we can say what the materials are. This isn't a house. Fence, you could restrict what the materials are for a fence. I think if somebody wants to put up a corrugated metal fence, I think they can do it.
Yeah, I think it would be
We're,
difficult.
we already say that you're not allowed to have a chain link fence.
Could be right.
Yeah.
A corrugated metal could be cool, you know? It
Okay.
could be interesting.
All right,
Be
okay, so-
rusted and-
All right. That was
Yeah,
all the
I know,
discussion
I
had.
just, yeah, I don't think you wanna go down that road.
All right.
We'll let, when they draft it, they'll put the material, cause we already have that in there.
All right, all right. So, all right, we have a discussion, end of discussion, or do we have more discussion?
Were you able to capture the motion and the
Got it.
amendment?
Most of it, but it's recorded, and so, and you guys are speaking it,
Right,
saying it very clearly, so I'm sure that I can
yeah. We,
gather that,
we should, good. It'll show up in the next meeting's notes, right?
of course.
So we can check that.
All right,
Very good.
very good.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Good. Thanks, Tom.
Take it.
Thanks, Michaela. All
She did a
right,
good
moving
job.
along here. All right. Continued discussion and possible action on enforcement recommendation. I'm gonna ask your forgiveness on this. I was supposed to come back with a page of what it is we wanna say about about enforcement. Just taken from the comments in the survey, but comments from this, as you all know, if you dig into the survey and you wanna really start figuring out what it says, it'll take you a day. So I haven't had a day to spend looking at the survey and figuring out what everybody is saying about this, but I will do it, and I ask that we table this until next meeting,
So moved.
okay? Discussion on next steps, all right.
I have a question about that relates to 7. So the fence height recommendations that we approved will go to P and Z next?
That's
It
correct.
will go to P and Z next, yes. Not on September 4th.
Okay.
There's a bunch of stuff that's gonna happen, I guess, at the October P and Z meeting. We're gonna have a whole bunch of stuff.
I would suggest that if it does go, I'd put everything there, cause you never know whether it's gonna have.
Well, you know, here's the thing, with this joint meeting, I don't know whether council wants to restrict it to the 2 items, the main items, or if they're gonna allow me to add things to the agenda.
You can add them and they'll just table it.
Yeah. I would go for it.
I would
You would
too.
go for it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then lighting, and there's a couple of things that can go in there, so.
Then if they fuss about the timing of getting everything, hey, we gave it to you. You tabled
Well,
it.
I imagine I have to get all this stuff in tomorrow for Wednesday's meeting. That's right, is that Michaela?
Yes.
Yeah, I've gotta get it in, yeah,
Wait, the
so.
4th is Thursday, isn't it?
Do,
We need to postpone.
do you have a draft agenda I'm sorry, I might have just missed it.
Not
but
yet.
what are you thinking of putting on
Well, all I was gonna put on there were the 2 items.
there? Height and trees?
Height and
Okay.
trees, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know, given that we're gonna have a whole crowd of people, do we wanna burden the meeting with these other things? Now, yeah, to Tom's point, we just put them on the end, and, and if we don't, we don't. I guess we can keep going.
It'd be a
I-
good way to
lighting's
get the
ready to go,
discussion
and-
going
Yeah.
about fences.
There's, lighting's ready to go, and so is driveways.
And
They're
so is-
ready to go to the same meeting?
So is fencing.
Huh?
They're ready to go to P and Z also, right?
Yeah.
They are.
What was the first one?
Lighting,
Lighting, yeah.
yeah.
And the draft language has been written
We've
up?
got lighting, we've
No,
got,
it's, no, it's not, this stuff,
Just a
This
proposal,
was-
just a
okay,
recommendation.
just to be clear. The codification of our ordinances that is going to be discussed at this coming meeting was at the request of city council.
Okay.
Because of the size of what it is we're doing and the complexity of what it is we're doing with both trees and building heights. City council wanted this stuff written in code form so they could talk about it more easily, okay?
Check.
The other stuff about driveways and lighting, it's less complicated, and I don't,
Bring up topic 9 so that we're all on topic.
okay.
Oh, did we go through
We are on
enforcement?
discussion and next steps.
Okay.
You tabled it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry, I
okay,
thought I
that's
did
all right.
that. I thought I did that, but excuse me.
What?
So,
We're on item 9.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
on item 9, but yeah, that's the reason why they wanted it codified, is that they wanted it to be more bite-sized for discussion.
So, if we did the fence recommendation at the same meeting, it would be out of step with what sounds like.
No.
Then why
No,
not,
we could.
why not give, if you're gonna do
There
the
is
fence
no reason
recommendation,
if
why
we
not
have-
do the lighting recommendation?
If we have something
and
we
the-
can write down, and I think we can, we could present
it-
that. We could present that at,
It'll be in our
P-
minutes. and
P&Z,
we can
yeah?
submit that.
We can
Just
do it.
just because Ashley's not here, I don't want to speak and say anything that's
Yeah.
set in stone necessarily. So I could definitely ask her, but I'm just not 100% sure, and I don't want
I
to
can-
lead you guys
I'll
in the
work
wrong
with her
direction.
to get that out and include it. Including everything, nothing can go, I mean, what's the bad part about
Well, we
doing
do that all the time here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that all the
I
time.
mean, the
So-
public will start to see it for the first
No,
time, and
no,
that's,
no, it's not a thing.
that's a good
It'll
thing.
eventually go for a public hearing.
No,
Jay,
no,
when you
I'm
get
just saying-
back all these things from after the
Yeah.
P&Z, the city council, and the attorneys deal with it, you'll look at it and
Yeah.
go, is that what the hell we approved?
To-
Is that what
to-
our recommendations were?
To tell you the truth, you know, there's been so much talk about us bundling these things anyway,
Mhm.
and that, you know, what we're delivering is not a comprehensive package. Well, it's getting comprehensive by default. You know, by virtue of just, you know, some things moving through the pipeline a little more quickly than others, like this fence. We did it in one night, it's great. If they get bunched up, we've literally talked to, we are comprehensive in our recommendations, great.
So, I guess what I'm asking is it feasible to put fence, lighting, and foundations as part of that meeting?
Sure.
Our
Foundations are
recommendations?
already part of it,
Sure.
Oh, they are?
they
Okay.
are. They're in the height,
Oh, okay.
it's already in there.
And
So
then
that's
what about,
happening,
what
that's
about
happening.
the tree protection issues? We're talking
Tree-
about
yeah, we
trees.
don't have that.
No, that won't be ready.
Well, we
by
can
then.
bring that back later.
I don't mind telling you, what ends up happening is, if they get to it, they're gonna have some comments that, and they'll say, okay, we'll send it back to CRC
Yeah.
to get them to, so we get their views back, and, you know, there's nothing negative about that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And you may have people that don't have anything, complaints about anything, that wanna come up and speak, except for the heights of a fence.
Right.
And then we'll
Yeah.
get that information back.
Yeah.
So, you know, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, we'll try to get something like a fence ordinance together, or a fence recommendation together for the packet tomorrow, right? You're gonna do it, or
I'll talk to
You need me
Ashley
to-
in the morning.
you need me to do anything?
No,
Good. See, we're in next steps.
I thought we were already on
What?
the next step.
We are in next steps. It has a next step, right? That's the very next thing. All right, very good. I had some notes about this.
How many other steps do we take?
There are, well, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Is, I already talked to both Brian and Alex offline here about trying to consolidate or harmonize some of their output, such that what Brian is saying about FAR works with what Alex is saying about FAR and vice versa. And so
Yeah.
you two are gonna get together.
Now, those are negative documentations, Tom. It's not that we're making a proposal about FAR, it's why we're not.
Yeah, no, I understand.
We're not making
And
this group is not making a proposal
That's
about
right.
drainage. This group is not making a
That's right.
proposal about impervious cover.
There you go.
Why? We're just, this is,
I agree.
But yes,
So-
but it's
so-
such an interesting topic that we have to talk about it regardless.
Well, there was some questions
People wanna
in the
know.
survey.
And it was a question in
we
the
sur-
survey.
yeah,
and
we
it was,
surveyed.
It was 50-50,
two of those were surveyed.
yeah.
So,
So, that's one next step. That's a thing. Now, Alex is working on a history that I think will serve us well as far as, you know, putting something into a package for about building heights. I think what we need to do is to go back to our charter and look at the items that were listed in the charter and decide whether or not we adequately covered them. I know we didn't, but what are we gonna do about that?
What didn't we cover?
Okay, let's look at we can read right through it.
Where is this charter of which you
Well, the charter's actually online under the CRCRC area.
Uh-oh.
You and I were late to this party, if you
Yeah.
remember, and so I'm not sure that I have ever read that.
I haven't either.
Well, I wasn't late and I hadn't read it.
All right.
I was
All
late
right,
too.
let's see, the charter says, first off, it said, issues identified by city council, P and Z, and city staff were construction management, and there were 4 things under that, and we decided that, and actually, city council decided we didn't need to do anything with those, they're handling themselves.
Where do we find this charter online?
If you look under Know Your Government,
Know your government?
okay, and you'll find there's a thing there for the CRCRC.
I have read it. It's been like forever ago.
And there are a couple of documents under the CRCRC, one of them being, what did they call it?
Is it Meet Your Government?
Yeah,
Boards and commissions.
Comprehensive,
Document Center, is that,
no, it's not Document
it's
Center.
not the Document Center?
it's under
View the
comprehensive.
CRC formation.
Oh, at the very bottom, supporting documents, okay.
Supporting document, formation document.
It's the formation
Oh.
document.
That's like discovering the,
We're a year over,
We're more than a year over.
not quite, it's supposed to convene October 1st, 2023. Or convene beginning April 1st through October 1st.
I guess that's right, yeah, you're right, okay. So, if you will drop to the bottom there where it says building ordinances. One of our considerations was permissible building and planting and setbacks, easements, and right-of-ways. We kind of talked about some of the building projections. We did that. We did not talk about, did we talk about planting and setbacks? I guess we did. We did not talk about anything about right-of-ways, and we can probably just let that go. How to measure setback distances. We really didn't do anything with, we had some discussion around setbacks, but we never settled on it.
The whole tinting concept which we adopted is about setbacks. It's just
yeah.
about setbacks at higher levels than ground level.
They're not asking how
I don't know
to
what that
measure.
means.
This is not a very good way to look at it. They were asking what setbacks are we gonna recommend?
Right.
That's what this is.
Well, okay, and to that point, do we have any recommendations that we think need to be taken with regard to setbacks? Or are we happy to say?
Well, the problem
I
is,
just want to ask a question. Last week, I was led to believe we can't use the word setback anymore. We have to
well, I
Well,
think,
now, this is something Jerry's
I think-
talked about, the way the ordinances are currently written, there's
Yeah.
a real disconnect between the use of the concept of a yard, front
Yeah.
yard, backyard, side yard, and
Yes.
setbacks. And over various time periods, different drafting has resulted in different language being used, but we have been talking about setbacks, and
Yeah.
but the existing code talks about it in terms of having a required yard.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
the same animal.
yeah.
So we can talk about setbacks, but when it gets
Yeah.
into the actual.
well, no,
Exactly. This-
remember last meeting, Ashley said, we are working with the attorney
Yeah.
to identify and correct those items to make that all one word
Yeah.
to
Yes.
do.
Yes. Everything here that you see predates the notion of yards. So that's, yards has only come into being.
Actually, the notion of yards was put in the 1980s.
Well, I think that,
I don't
Councilmember
know why
Brown,
that
I
didn't
think
seem long
adopted,
ago.
was pushing for yards as the descriptor.
What
Okay.
was the issue with measuring setback distances?
I think that all they were asking is the 10 and 15 that we have currently, the 25 feet, adequate, or does it need to be less or more?
And
Okay.
now we have a provision in there with 12.5 feet being what you're
Well,
allowed.
so we addressed
So
that.
we did address it, yeah, yeah.
All right,
Driveways and egress,
we addressed,
But-
we addressed that.
But Dave, the tinting concept, the
Yeah.
step backs,
that covered.
that is a setback concept.
You're right, it is,
Oh,
because it
And
starts.
that
at-
is and that
that's
is a
right.
basic, I think,
Yeah.
a basic thing that we have done.
Yes,
And
Is- is-
Okay.
speaking of which, the driveway part could also go to this joint meeting, right?
The
Oh,
corner
yeah.
driveway.
the corner
Yeah.
driveway, that's,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
we,
Could
it
also-
should go
we're
to.
doing it, it's going, it's it, got driveways and egress. Allowable building heights, roof pitch, and measurement guidelines. Well, roof pitch is kind of addressed in a way, but not really. But allowable building height certainly is, and measurement guidelines certainly are. Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
point to that, cause something came up recently regarding, is it okay? if I-
Absolutely, this is the
okay.
time.
Okay,
Very good.
so maximum permissible height, currently reads just, no portion of any building or structure except a chimney, attic vent, lightning rod, or any adjacent equipment required by the city building code may exceed 35 feet in height. Except as may be required by applicable codes, no chimney, attic vent, lightning rod, or required equipment may extend more than 3 feet above the highest point of the following: the coping of a flat roof, the deck line of a mansard roof, or the gable of a pitched or hipped roof. The problem with that wording, and I don't know what y'all's interpretation of that is, my interpretation was that when you get to the maximum building height, the chimney, attic vent, lightning rod, or equipment can only be an additional 3 feet. But the way it's written makes it sound a little ambiguous. It says, it can only be 3 feet above the highest point of the roof. Now, if your
So if
highest,
you build a 30-foot roof, you have 3 feet for your chimney.
that's it. You could technically have 5 feet, cause you're still below the maximum height.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I haven't-
I have no knowledge, nor do I have a position on this question.
Well,
but
my
is it
recommendation.
a good idea or a bad idea to have more than a 3-foot chimney?
I think you could, I don't think you should dictate what somebody's design looks like, so provided they're under the maximum building height, potentially. So I think what we might want to say is, except as may be required by applicable codes, no chimney, attic vent, lightning rod, or required equipment may extend more than 3 feet above the maximum permissible height. Because I think that is the intent, as opposed to making it measured off the highest point, because I think this presumes the highest point is at 35 feet. Is that,
But it doesn't say that.
it doesn't say that. I have it written.
No, we can't act on this tonight because we didn't put this in here for action.
But if it
But-
needs to go to the city at some point, I think it should
Yeah,
be,
but we can act on it next time.
okay,
We can do that.
okay,
You know. And I thought it was useful to introduce the concept.
okay.
You know, so that, you know, that you can say that, you know, what we, back in March, we took the original 107.71, which is the first
That's
thing
what
that
this
Alex had
is.
read off. And we approved it. We said, oh, yeah, 35 feet, yeah, that sounds right. Looks the way, you know, the words appear to be. And there's always the devil's in the details, right? There's this thing that's out there and you think you got it right and then you think, well, gee, I didn't think about that. So, and I think that's what we're doing. We're
This is just
we're-
really a wording change here.
It's a wording change.
It's a
So
wording
when the
change.
draft comes back from
To-
the attorney
Yeah.
and the city, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be
So
clear.
if somebody, the point being that if somebody wants to have a higher than 3-foot chimney, provided that they're underneath the 35-foot limit, what's the harm?
Like, some people might use it as sort of like an architectural element. It could become kind of a feature, to give balance to the elevation that is more than 3 feet above the roof, but, so, that's
Okay.
All right.
So-
So this is part of item 9 on the next steps would be to amend the wording on the height deal. I just want to make sure that, I don't want to get fussed at because
Yeah.
we're,
And I think that's right.
okay.
And I think it's also right that this is the time to be thinking about what have we left out,
Mhm.
Well,
right?
there
I
are-
wanted to ask Nikki, if you
Yeah.
had any
Yeah.
little issues that come up that there are people that you kind of trying to figure out how to interpret
Yeah.
things that
So we got this list.
we're missing.
Yeah,
And we can, there are a few that we
there's
haven't done,
that's right.
but we're not going to.
Probably not. Well, that's what I want to talk about now. Is
Yeah.
we're gonna agree that we're not gonna do it.
Well,
Okay?
well, then why don't we do that?
Let's
Why
keep
don't we
going
do
down
it
the
this
list.
way? We've done, we've done the first one,
Mhm.
setbacks, we've
Yeah.
done driveways,
Yeah,
we've done
yeah,
height,
yeah,
we've
yeah.
done number of stories, we've done by the height limitation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we haven't.
allow-
What we decided is that we're not going to do, we decided that we're not gonna
I know.
dictate the number of stories.
I know, we did that through the height that we're dealing with,
I think we actually,
or at least.
I
that's how
think that
Thank you.
we're going to need to write that into something that we deliberately decided, and I know we did vote on this.
We did.
That we deliberately decided that we were not gonna limit the
That's
number of
right.
stories.
Well,
Okay.
that's fine, we can
Yeah.
do that, all right, so
Okay, good.
that's one step that we're
Right.
gonna
There's
do
one more thing
is
that needs to go into
The
my,
numbers, yeah,
stories,
yep, right.
all right? Then we've got
Well, we-
allowable fence height, we've
Allowable-
done that.
Did that, right?
Residents' right to privacy, that's something we need to write up.
What,
Well, I don't think you can let,
I don't know what we do
It'd
with
be
that.
Well,
very
then we
hard to
say
write
it's
anything.
not our, then all we do is write that down and say,
Say-
this is not something we took up because we don't feel like
We
that is
don't know.
in our bailiwick to do.
Okay.
That's all we're gonna do on
All right.
these that are
Okay,
there.
now,
And then,
allowable changes in topography, that was submitted by one council member.
well,
And I wrote to that council member and asked, can you give me some guidance as to what you wanna see come out of that item? I never got anything back.
well, it doesn't matter, we did address this with the foundation issue about natural grade. We went through that you're not gonna add 5 feet of fill and call that your height deal. So topography, we did.
Just- Yeah, okay.
can
I
you,
think it's a stretch,
can you
but all right.
excavate to the property line,
Ooh, that's a good one.
5 feet below, which some people are doing? Is that allowable under current code?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Alex, was I supposed to pass this on?
No,
to
no, no.
someone?
All right, and then the
So
next
do we
item
need something in the
is impervious
code?
cover.
We're just looking
Okay.
at the 13-foot
And
chimney
impervious
as an
cover,
architectural feature too,
okay,
otherwise
we
I'm very
decided we're
flat.
not gonna do.
Here's something, let me stop you there.
Provide
Let me
balance.
stop you.
Let's have one
I had we're on impervious cover right now.
Wait,
I
I
had-
thought we were on allowable changes to topography.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
thought we were
Okay.
gonna hear
I
about.
didn't finish the discussion on
Okay,
allowable
then
changes
let's-
to topography.
Bring it back.
I was curious what you mean, yes and no.
Part of the code states that there are no grade changes at the property line. However, somehow within the drainage code, it's worked in there. I am not a drainage engineer, and it is something I do not understand, so.
Hmm.
It's.
Yeah.
Are you asking me a question? Oh, like I said, I'm not a drainage engineer.
When you say drainage code, do you mean
Jerry-
the drainage criteria?
Jerry.
Yes, that's the only one we have.
It's-
So, Jay, you're talking about scraping, I'm trying to figure this, you're changing the topography at the lot line.
Yes.
And they're, what are they, landscaping, drainage, grading? I know, but why would you,
Why would you? Yeah, they're excavating properties down and making them flat. But they're carving up to the property line and taking out trees and the setbacks.
well, but our tree ordinance is gonna cover that, maybe.
Does it?
Do we have,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
well,
we can't
do we
really-
have examples of what you just said?
Well,
I can think of a
thinking of
couple.
a house
But
on
does it matter if
Timberline,
somebody,
I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
if somebody levels their lot and they're not taking out trees, I'm assuming that our tree ordinance works, who cares?
Well, they are taking out trees. Well,
Well,
there, somebody came in here and spoke about a neighbor next to them that had cut all the way to her property line and took out the trees. And compromised her fence as
Right.
well. And they got into, the builder was trying to wanted her to tear down her fence and remake it so that it benefited them. And she's like, no, that's my fence. It matches my house. But they kind of compromised the integrity of her fencing.
But, I mean, so, I'm just not seeing that I could say, all right, Alex, you can't change the topography of your lot.
But you've said, like, you wish that nobody did anything in the setback.
Yes.
And they are taking out the setback.
Yeah,
So-
well, they're changing it, but it's still a setback.
Where's the,
But
Yeah,
you're right,
well,
you're
but
right.
they're taking out trees because they
Well,
can't.
now,
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that this tree ordinance will, it's
I
not
don't
gonna
know that
prevent
it has
the
enough
trees
teeth,
from
and
coming
once,
down.
if
You're
you're
right.
dropping down like 3 feet,
Yeah,
you've lost 3 feet of
I mean, it's
height
all-
for a
it's all
protective
done
canopy
permanently.
when you plant trees back in.
well, how would we deal
Yeah,
with that?
yeah, what do we
'Cause I'm-
wanna do? Is there something we wanna do with this?
I mean, yeah, I would love for people to just
So if I
build
wanna put,
within their buildable area, with the exception of the driveway, to some
Jeez.
extent.
but Alex, if I wanna put a flower bed in on my property line, and it requires me to level it out to put that in there, I mean, I don't know that that's a negative.
Well, are you leveling it up, or are you carving down? Like, I don't know, I guess we maybe
Depends on the
need
lot.
better visuals because,
Yeah, well, I can't tell you because it
Yeah.
would depend on the lot, but
at some point, if you're leveling up, you're building a structure and you're violating a setback.
that's right. Well, that's different, that's true too. But,
but if it's a planter, I think most people are
it
comfortable
wouldn't even
with
be a planter
plants and-
necessarily, it'd
yeah.
just be,
Yeah.
yeah. I
But
don't-
there's a line somewhere in that vague area.
I think, I think to Tom's point, I think that people should be allowed to grade their property to whatever they feel is the completed lot. And naturally you wanna be respectful of everything that's around it, but if we start talking about this, then we have to start putting guidelines as, well, how much grading are you allowed to do? And under what circumstances would you be able to do that? And frankly, I'm not
The
prepared
city of
to do
Austin
it.
has 80 or
I
90
don't
pages
know.
on cut and fill. We
I
could
don't
just
know.
adopt that and see if we can
No,
get that passed.
Now, there was, the place across, next to Jeannie's place,
Mhm.
that guy,
Chiseled out,
they chiseled out, all this hillside, and they went to city council. It took them a while to do it. They had to go to city council several times to present their case that they needed to do it, because the lot would have been, they had a hill that went straight up behind their house, and they wanted to take that hill out and then terrace it down with blocks. And finally, it got voted on and they allowed it to happen. And Jeannie, who actually spoke in behalf of this guy, said, I'm okay with this is okay. Now, what was the thing that kept him from being allowed to do that in the first place, or what the point of contention was, I don't know. I don't know where in the code it says you're not allowed to dig into the hillside and put up a terrace. I don't know where it is. But he had to go to city council to get it, evidently to get a building
I
permit.
thought there was a
Evidently.
drainage issue.
It's
I'm
the
sorry.
maximum allowed cut. I
Oh,
think it's, Joan pulled me to it.
4 feet.
Yeah.
It's like 7 or 8 feet or something of that nature, and
Oh.
he needed, per se, just for numbers, 10,
okay.
to make it work.
Where is
So we
that
do
in the
have a
code?
limit on that?
Just per se.
Okay.
Where is that in the code?
It is under cut and fill,
The
sites
cut and
for-
fill section.
It's gonna be,
I don't think it is.
yeah,
I think it's in the drainage portion.
yeah, please.
103,
What
section
do you know,
103.
Jerry?
Yeah, okay,
107,
Is
103.
yeah, okay.
is cut and fill in 107?
Jerry Fleming, 305 Nixon Drive, and that lot terrace was changed by a special exemption on the ordinance at a city council meeting because it didn't have to go to public hearing because it wasn't in zoning.
Right.
So there was a compromise between two of the council people to get it done, and they changed the city ordinance right then. And that's how that got accomplished.
So we don't have a cut and fill, but we have some cut and fill limitations in
We
the
do have
zoning.
So what,
103,
but
what?
if,
I don't know.
should,
Drainage.
should something extreme like this come up again, then it would also need to go to city council again for approval?
Part 2
Yeah.
development code,
Should.
and then.
I
Would,
don't have a
would-
problem with it.
would that be your perception of what you
To land development code.
would go to Board of Adjustment? All right.
If it's a zoning deal, it goes to,
Yeah.
city council.
Yeah.
If it's a building deal, it goes to Board of Adjustment.
Part 2, open that up,
Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't go to P&Z.
and then I think it's in here, that's where
No,
I'm
no.
looking right now. It's
No, no.
103.
Environmental district 103.
So,
But the
let me
ordinance
ask,
would
let
go
me
to
ask
P&Z.
Nikki, is there something here that we would weigh in on or make a recommendation? I don't,
That's totally up to y'all.
no, I'm, no, that,
Do
I
you
mean,
have
we can
problems
do
with
anything we
this?
want, but is there something within these codes that seem to be, that need attention or can even
Okay.
have attention?
There's a
2-1.
lot, in my opinion,
It's
but
103-235, site
Yeah.
disturbance.
area around.
103.
So I guess the question is topography. Do we need to look at the topography 103 of the building code and say, gee, we want a maximum of 4-foot cut and fill? Do we want, now it's 7 or 8, whatever it is.
I found it, 103-235.
103-235.
And that is drainage.
There's actually, it references that property in here.
Yes.
That's
It's
interesting.
specifically changed because.
That's what Jerry was
Says-
just saying,
Yeah.
that
Oh.
it's changed up
They-
at that
they just-
night,
They just
just
stuck it in there.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when using a terrace rotation, up to 3 terrace could.
That's what you were.
All this would be code.
No, I was at the list of things we had to go through. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you say 103-335?
2, 3.
All right.
235. I think
235.
that is one piece of it, but I think the other issue is there a reason to limit how much somebody can cut,
In the setbacks or yard.
like, are the side setbacks, yeah, between neighbors?
Yeah, that's something to, I think we take that up, because this is, the city, when they took this up with this one house, that was really not a very good way to do it, where you craft an ordinance for one house.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
I don't think that's that may be why this is in our list of deals to
Okay.
do.
Let's get a subcommittee together, we can do that. I don't, who wants to take this on? I'll participate, if necessary, but I think we would need to get 3 people together to do this.
I will help on that, but I will
Okay.
not be here for,
Okay.
I'm gonna be out.
This doesn't have to be taken up this week. Who wants to do cut and fill?
I would like to get my head around what this is. I need to.
Okay, we'll
figure
bring
it
this
out.
up, I'll tell you what.
Push that back.
Let's table this part.
We'll
until
table
next
this
month.
until next meeting. I want you all to think about it, take a look at the ordinance, see whether or not you're interested. And if you're, and if we can't get a subcommittee together to do it, then we're gonna pass it up.
No, then we just do it as a group here, and we just work through it.
We'll see what we do.
But so the next item is impervious cover, which we have taken up. And then zoning by topography, and that's where we just need to say, we're not doing that. I don't think we are.
No, we're not. We
No,
decided that we are
made
not doing
we had a
it.
discussion about that.
We
I'm
had a
not
discussion.
I know,
voted
but
it
I'm
out.
saying, I'm trying to work the list that we give them on
Yeah, I
the bill, so
understand,
sorry,
I understand. We
check.
talked
It's a
about that
survey
and we're not gonna
question
do it.
also,
Yeah.
or not by topography, but by.
Yeah.
And then we have.
What we did though, what we did do was we put the special exception in there for floodplains, which was where the zoning by topography discussion actually started.
Okay, so we,
So,
I mean,
in
we-
essence, we took care of it.
Yeah.
all right, fire
Okay.
considerations in regard to the
Okay.
tree ordinance.
What,
Yeah.
what is this? This
That's
is
Dave.
Okay, now this is, yeah, this, I put this there, you know, and it is,
Well, you wrote all of this. To
yeah,
me.
that's true.
Yes.
So,
This was all day.
but, well, I had help from Brooke.
Huh?
Okay, I had
Oh,
help
okay,
from Brooke.
okay.
Brooke and I both
Th-
did.
This is
Okay.
for,
Yeah.
this is for fire prevention of not having vegetation
That's what,
next to your house.
if you talk with Travis County Fire Prevention, they will tell you that, you know, that you, whenever you're replanting trees and things, you should keep them, for instance, 10 feet away from a house. Because our area is possibly prone to wildfires. Now,
No.
there are people who are arguing and saying, no, we are not prone to wildfires. Some people say we are, some people say we're not. I don't wanna find out the hard way.
Well, let me
But,
help you with that. There's two things.
yeah,
One, if you look at your insurance policy, you will find that your insurance company considers us to be in the highest risk for wildfires. Number two, back in, it's been a long time, but we did a study of the worst case of a fire in District 9, ESD number 9, when I was a fire commissioner. And it starts on 360 and it ends on Mopac. And unfortunately, Rollingwood is between those two places.
Yep.
And that's where we stopped it.
It would be just like the Bastrop fire of
That's
2011,
exactly
and
right.
that is, would be a strong north wind blowing
Yeah.
and somebody on 360,
You got it.
Does
jumps
your
over a
insurance require
barbecue
trees to be
pit.
a certain distance from the house?
Here it
No,
goes.
they've zoned us, we're, our rates are determined individually, different from Austin or Westlake. And we are, it's either 1 is good or 5 is good, I never can remember that. But if you can move one section to another, your insurance rates will, you would save, you know, $50, $60 a month on your fire insurance. And we used to look at, okay, what would it take to move that needle up, to make us better? Fire hydrants, fire protection, building code, water supply. And so I could come to you and say, I'm gonna raise your taxes by $10 a month, but you're gonna save $30 a month for fire insurance.
And when you say building code, you mean specifically building code that says you can't have a tree, you know, within 10 feet of your house?
for instance.
It's usually building materials as to what you like, we don't
Yeah.
allow wooden roofs, for example.
Okay.
And so those are the type of things that usually keep the
Yeah.
rates
So
different.
there's nothing about trees in insurance?
It really isn't,
Yeah.
and that,
The insurance companies will send a recommendation letter around, though. I've gotten those. in the
Yeah.
past.
Now,
So
when.
please let us come out and trim your trees so that they're not close to your house, so that if there is a fire, it doesn't get into your attic and burn.
When we first formed, and I brought this up, there wasn't a lot of appetite for it. But I had called Travis County Fire Prevention and had asked them if somebody can come out here and talk to us. And just give us a presentation on what the dangers of, what kind of dangers we're facing and what can be done in order to mitigate them. And they were more than happy, and I brought it up a couple of times. We had a lot of stuff going on, and it just got passed over. We never really did it. But as a next step, I think we should have somebody come and talk to us and tell us what.
you're
Do
talking
we have
about
a thing?
ESD number 9.
I guess
Elliot.
that, yeah.
I mean, what would be the end result, that we would
We,
have some
ba-
codification
it's
about
kind
where
of
you
like,
could
it's
put a
kind of like the
tree?
cut and fill. We
Or-
would decide
okay.
whether or not we wanna take something up.
Okay,
Do
'cause
we
I
wanna
mean,
do something with
And
it?
is there
I've
any
seen people planting trees like right up against their house, and to me, that's just dumb.
But they
like-
do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's their problem.
Well,
I
no,
mean-
it's not. You see, it's worse than that.
No,
See,
I'm
the
gonna tell you.
problem is that the fires don't spread house to house. They spread canopy
Yeah,
across the canopy,
yeah,
and then they go to the house,
yeah.
right? And so,
No, they're gonna have.
if a house burned down, and, I mean, it's not the wildfire. We got a house that burns down, you've got trees right next to their house, and their trees are touching the trees that are right next to them and all that. All of a sudden, now the canopy's on fire. That's my concern.
How about we have somebody volunteer to look at other ordinances to see if they have anything in them about trees can't be a certain distance from a house?
You know, there are in California, I will tell you that
Yeah.
Westlake,
I'd be concerned about Texas and
yeah, I
Alaska.
know, Westlake finally allowed you to trim, and take out cedar trees that were adjacent to your house. And it took forever for them to do that. Now, cedar trees doesn't have to be adjacent to your house to prevent a fire hazard, cause they blow up, they
Yeah.
explode when they get hot.
Right.
So-
I, as you know, Dave, don't have a lot of appetite for this topic because, for instance, we went to a great deal of trouble to build around our trees. We like our trees, you know, we like
Yeah.
to look out into our trees,
Right.
and our trees aren't necessarily, you know, yes, maybe they're touching some neighbors' trees, but anyway, I don't want to micromanage people on this topic. It's kind of a best practices thing. If
Yeah,
you're
that,
gonna-
and maybe
yeah.
that's all that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a best practice.
I think we've already got a number of best practices that we're lobbing out there.
Yeah.
It's kind of overreach. I mean,
Well,
I
I
gotta tell you,
hadn't thought about it until I
the
opened
only
this thing up
time you
again.
can do, I have trees
yeah.
next to my house, because, when we built the house, they were little trees, now they're big trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, my biggest issue is that they're a freeway for raccoons and undesirable insects, and so we cut them back every now and then just to keep
But
the.
if we had a best practice, that at least said something to the
Vermin.
effect that whenever you're putting a new tree in, consider this. Don't put it right next to your
You
house.
would think
Yeah,
they're
consider
expensive landscape
how it's gonna
architects
be
would
as a
do
grown
that.
tree instead of just
Exactly.
this year.
Alex, I agree with you. I will tell you, this is if we're talking about just for fire reasons on
Yeah.
this, then I think this is probably something we leave to the fire department, that we pay taxes to make a recommendation on that. I
Yeah.
do not think the city is going to do that, because, David, the problem is, the only people that this would apply to is new housing.
Well, a lot of the stuff that we're doing only applies to
I
new
know,
houses.
but it's
That's
not gonna.
That's what we're doing here.
It's not going to make, and then if they're, I just don't think that's going to make a,
Honestly, I don't see the harm of having someone talk to us.
no, I don't either. I
No,
don't
let's,
mind
let's
doing
start
it.
with that and then maybe see whether some other community, what they have in their ordinances as maybe as far as best practice.
I'm going to say again, my time on this committee is coming to an end. And so the talk of let's add this and do this, like if there are things that are like still that we've missed, I'm good, but otherwise I'm gone.
I honestly think that this is more important than cut and fill.
All right, so
Okay.
let's
Well,
say,
so be it.
all right,
All right, permitting process, that's out of our hands. We're not doing it. Public education of ordinances,
it's a city council's
yeah.
deal.
Impact resolution of nonconformances created by code changes. I think, Tom, you were gonna write something about this.
No,
once
I
upon a
was
time.
not.
Oh, yes, you were. At the very beginning of this thing, when we got together, I believe that you went on, and Bob, no matter what we do, we are creating a nonconformance and all that, and then you will write something that just says that.
I think I remember that too.
No, you don't.
It's an implanted memory.
Yeah. Now, to me,
Sorry,
I don't really care about this because I don't
Do you
believe
Maybe
in
we don't
nonconformance.
Do you want this to end?
I do.
All right then, you better side with
You
me
don't,
on
you
this.
may have said it, but that doesn't mean it has to be done.
Okay.
So how about that?
I'm pretty sure I didn't say that. If I did, I was under duress.
You know, the meeting minutes are still out there, you know, they're there. Anyway, okay, and then finally, ordinance and I wanna come back to impervious cover. Ordinance enforcement, I'm gonna handle that. I'm just gonna write a thing, all right? And then
All right.
you guys can review it and you tell me if
The
we're away or not.
impact.
Now, impervious cover.
Yeah, that's-
I did speak with Rick Thompson today, after we spoke, and invited him to come to our next meeting, which is September 10th. And he may come. But my invitation was this, I said, he has probably done more drainage plans and more site management or site plans than any other civil engineer anywhere in Rolling. He's probably done half of the new construction he's probably done. And I said, you know the code, you know what you're doing in order to comply with the code. If you had an opportunity to change the code, do you have some helpful hints of what that might be? And he said, if you've ever talked with Rick, you'll get this, but it took a while for him to get this out. He said that one thing he has trouble with is that the codes are not sunsetting. That what's written is going to be in there forever, and he says he thinks that they need to be looked at from time to time, and it just should be written into the code that this code exists this way for drainage, and that the circumstances may change, and that you may want to revisit that. That's one thing. He also said that there are a number of things in our drainage control manual that are there that no one says why they're there. There's no purpose in it. They just put it in there. And he thinks that our code could benefit from having some purpose in there. And of course, he, like everybody else, says, drainage should have never been handled lot by lot anyway. You can hardly do anything with it lot by lot. It should have been handled as a global thing. The only ones he knows in Texas that is doing it right is the city of Houston. And that they take a more holistic view of drainage and they try to handle it all at the same time. We and everybody else is doing this as a postage stamp, and it doesn't really get anything done. And I asked him the question that I think we all know the answer to. I said, okay, let's face it. Is it true that if we talk about impervious cover, and given that we're practically building everything that we have here on a rock that has got 3 inches of dirt on it,
If that.
is there any real difference between impervious cover and the native ground? And he says, if you're writing a PhD or you're doing your master's thesis, he says, you will find that people will say it's all the same. That impervious is impervious, the ground is impervious, the patio is impervious, your house is impervious. Here in this part of the world, it's all impervious. Now, if you're going into a court of law and your neighbor sees that all of a sudden you put a house up there and now there's a trickle more water coming into your lot when it rains than there wasn't there before, now it's different. All of a sudden, even though it's not a material amount of water.
It's not a volume change, it's a timing change.
And it's that, he's saying that's where it gets into we all get into trouble, is that somebody gets mad about things, and then they take their neighbor to court, and then somebody like him gets called in to testify that yes, in fact, drainage has changed. The rate, the amount, whatever, okay? Is it something that is material? Probably not, but it's there. So,
But there's some very old water and drainage law coming to us all the way from Spain on that particular issue. So I don't think we need anything in our code about it.
no, my invitation to him stands, that if he decides that he wants to come next meeting, I would love to have him just come up to the podium and say a few words and say, this is my experience here, and these are the kinds of things that might be useful for you to consider. I don't know that we'll go anywhere with it, but at the very least, it'll be something we can put in the record and say, this is, we consulted one of the more knowledgeable people in this area. It'll add to your argument, really.
There-
You know, that we didn't just say, well, we don't think we have the expertise. We actually consulted the experts.
Most of our drainage issues in Rollingwood are lot to lot, which is what he's saying. And the city cannot get involved in disputes between drainage on lot to lots.
That's fair.
Because we don't have jurisdiction on that as a city.
All right.
So is it fair to say that we're not actually adding anything to this list, we're just going
We
to look
did
at the?
add, lighting is not in here.
Oh, okay.
We did add.
But
They
I mean,
added
tonight,
early
we're
on,
not adding anything really, we're just saying that we're gonna look at what the code is about, topography change. Maybe we just look at it and say, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have somebody from the fire department come and talk about trees and, but we're not.
If you'll allow me to,
really
if
do
you'll allow me
anything
to do
about it.
that, I would like
But
to.
if,
Yeah, I'd like to do
I
that
don't
just
care.
for my own
Go for it.
education, but not
Okay.
necessarily.
I don't wanna.
I would-
well, let me make a suggestion to
Yeah.
do that. Remember, he'll come, he's very good, I think I hired him actually back in the day when he, but he'll come and do this but say, okay, we need a 15-minute presentation.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, limit the time on
Right.
that, because remember, he's got a life too,
Yeah,
and we're asking him to come at night,
that's right, okay.
so.
They seemed very willing. I think
Yeah,
that they're not
good
getting
guy.
a lot of traction in this, and I think that they're actually concerned.
Where's
But
that
anyway,
going?
I will make arrangements to do that, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Okay.
So with that, that's all I wanted to
And-
cover in
and-
this list of things.
And this evening, I wanna
No,
make
we-
sure, Alex, you're doing the impact deal, right? Or was that you? Dave?
No, I'm doing
Okay.
ordinance enforcement.
No, I'm talking about that impact on, non-conformance.
No, we're gonna, that's still yours, Tom. That's still yours.
I think we can drop that. I think it was,
I'll
you made
write.
your statement at the time, I don't think anything needs to be written.
You know, no, here, the
It was a
reality,
concern of
the
some
reality
citizens,
of
and
it-
I will write that, I will write
Yeah.
something on that, yes,
Yeah.
probably 90% of Rollingwood is non-conforming right now anyway, if
Right.
not
Going-
99%.
going
and
all
so-
the way back again to the beginning.
I don't
When
remember.
we created this committee, it got some notice. And the Austin Board of Realtors sent two people to speak with Brooke and me, about whatever we do might change the value of property values.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you're talking about nonconformity. He says, well, yeah, we're talking about amenities, we're talking about property rights. And I said, can you tell me, if we create a nonconformist based on what we're doing, what the value change is gonna be on that property? He said, oh, no, we can't do that. I said, well, then how do you know it exists? How do you know?
Let me just put this in a little different deal. Every year, the city of Rollingwood adopts the Universal Building Code. And every year, the Universal Building Code has some changes in it. So we change that every year. Your house is not conforming. That's it. If you wanna look at it that way.
Right.
All right, how
Okay.
about item number,
No, we have item number 10, which is discussion and final CRC report on it. And I think that, Brian alluded to it earlier. What I would like to see is for every one of our decisions that at least a paragraph be written so that it can be included in a binder. Our report is not gonna look like the comprehensive plan. Our report is gonna look like a bunch of stuff that we individually decided on and put together with a cover letter in the front of it that says, what you're gonna find behind all this are these things, and what our decisions were made and our recommendations were made about them. So, each subcommittee, I want to have write something that we'll put into a binder, and we lock that, that becomes it. That becomes our comprehensive residential code review. That,
Okay.
okay? So, we're gonna need something for lighting. More than just that, you know, just a paragraph that goes on top of it.
Well, you didn't tell me that.
Come on, this is it. This is easy. This is easy stuff. This is something you can do while you're having your Rice Krispies in the morning. And we're gonna have to have something about, trees actually have kind of a beginning and all that. You want, but look at it from that perspective. You know, how does this fit into a larger thing?
Just don't
I think
start-
that a lot of what Alex is doing, I've done some work. I don't know. We're gonna put something together. Building heights is gonna be that thick.
This is your
But-
final report?
This will be the final.
Doesn't that depend on what's approved? I mean,
I see nothing here that we're doing that won't get approved.
okay.
It might get amended, but it'll go.
Well, just a general statement about what we tried to do.
You want a one paragraph or one sentence that says, okay, we did X, Y, Z on trees or lighting or whatever? I'm kinda confused about it.
I think that the way Brian starts his thing off, that this subcommittee got together and discussed a few things, and you went and you found this, and you looked at the survey, came up with these kinds of things and all that, and now these are our recommendations based on it. I like that. It's not a bad format, not a bad way to go. Did you see what, has anybody seen what you have? Yes, you sent it out. No, it hasn't
No.
gone out. No, it was yeah. Because it's not on this agenda, it wasn't allowed to go out to everybody today. But that might be a good template. And we can talk about this in our next meeting, but this is kind of where I wanna go. Okay? You can, if you got a better idea, hey, I'm cool with it, great. You know, but we do have to come up with a final product.
I'd have to see the template to be able to
Okay,
comment on
all right. I don't think you'll have any trouble with it. Yeah, you won't.
This final report is presented with our recommendations?
What I would
or
like, I think that we're gonna
after
be,
they've been approved or disapproved?
We don't care if they're approved or changed or whatever.
yeah,
It's our recommendations and that's just what we're
Okay,
gonna give
We
them.
can do that, no
yeah.
problem.
But I think we can we're almost finished.
Yeah.
We're
that's what
almost
I was
finished
thinking.
here. And, I think we can start talking about, you know, wrapping it up. Let's put a bow on it. We're done.
I think we just,
That's it.
Along that line,
Now, you know, and if we need to be called back in to talk to the people that are codifying this stuff, okay, fine, but that's not. Now, oh, and by the way, I passed this around. You know, I just got this in the mail yesterday, okay? This is like right across the street from me. Okay, this house has been being built for about 2 years. And it is 6,600 square feet.
maybe we should adjourn before we
Yeah.
talk
Yeah,
about
what-
specifics.
not
like
what
that.
No, well,
I'm gonna
it
make a
is,
motion.
it is and it's not, because I wanna illustrate that what this is it's a kind of a tasteful house, that is not particularly tall, that fits on the minimum on the minimum lot size here in Rollingwood, and you would never know that it's 6,600 square feet, got 7 beds and 9 baths. You would never know this.
I don't think you can,
Yeah, it's not.
I'll make a
on the
motion
agenda.
to adjourn.
Yeah, I second the motion.
I vote on the
Second.
motion.
Favor.
Okay,
Second, he's second.
Okay.
all right.
I'm in favor.
I